So, I've always loved the Skylanders soundtrack ever since I played the games as a kid. But thanks to things like Spotify and just becoming older, having a more mature ear, I feel like I've got a new kind of love for them. And I think the Skylanders soundtrack, and I'm talking about the first 5 games, of course, because we don't talk about that last one, is filled with gems and just great pieces of music. Now, I've always felt the need to make a ranking of the whole soundtrack. It's just something I feel so passionate about that I feel like I had to take the time and review all of them, right? Out of curiosity, I went to check if anybody else had done this on YouTube, and sure enough, I found a video by Will Drenner.
This honestly sounds really cool, but it just doesn't fit with the level at all.
Alright, his list is actually pretty good. Well, that was the motivation I need to finally rank all of them. It's time to take things into my own hands. Alright, jokes aside, before I start, I just want to say, everyone has their own preferences, everyone has their own taste. If you disagree with me on any of these picks, your list is totally valid because it's your list, right? Honestly, if you enjoy the Skylanders soundtrack, no matter what your ranking is, I'm truly happy. I'm really happy that we can share that common passion, right? So to each their own. On a more technical note, I listened through all the 75 songs written by Lorne Balfe and available on Spotify under the soundtrack of each of the first 5 games. I put them all in a playlist and clicked on shuffle so that there would be no bias for a particular game, and so I would really be listening to them for what they're worth and not just for their place in the story and the levels. Lastly, shout out Lorne Balfe, you absolute goat of a composer.
Who's got the grub when the grub needs getting? Faster feast when time is ticking.
I can congratulate it for being the shortest of the tracks on the list, but it fell short just as much. I can't really defend this one. It's the same 5 sounds repeated again and again with practically no melody. Where does this even appear in Spyro's adventure? Good enough music for an arena fight, but let's be honest, this track is just baiting us into thinking it's going to be Cutthroat Carnival. This obviously completely works with the intended level, but it's just not something you go for when listening to the soundtrack. Actually, who am I to judge what you go for? At first you're like, okay, this is not bad, it's a goofy little upbeat song, and then you hear this. What was the plan here? I don't know. Sometimes as an artist, you may just want to experiment with things. I can respect it, but I just can't listen to this. Fast-paced, feels like something straight out of a farm chase movie scene. It's just way too generic. I'm sorry to have to say it, but it feels like nothing is happening with this one. I know it was an adventure pack, but this is a straight up nothing burger. Luckily, it does pick up for a couple seconds towards the end, but that's it for this one. You'll see quickly through the list, but I feel like Trap Team might have been one of the less inspiring periods of the Skylanders soundtrack. We move on. When I listened to the songs for the video, I tried to guess their title, like while listening, because I've listened to them so many times, it's like a fun challenge to me. Honestly, I have no idea what this one was when I listened to it. It's just forgettable. Sorry, Monster Marsh listeners. Spooky, but you'll find out through the list that spooky soundtracks are not really my thing. It matches the vibe, but not my vibe. As much as I want to give this song credit for being more chill and simpler, it really doesn't compare with all the other tracks on the list. I do really enjoy this one from time to time, but it just needs more to stand out. This one feels a little goofy. It's upbeat and brings some joy to you, but I don't think it's one to come back to. I was ready to give this a stinker, but then the beat dropped and it actually became kind of a banger. It's short and a little creepy sounding, but it's got energy. Not a stinker, but it's far from great. It's boss music, alright. It really does give that sense of darkness and somberness and uses some really creative sounds. The voices in the background add a good touch to the whole dark aesthetic. It's good, but I just don't see myself coming back to it. It can be pretty forgettable. Catchy melody, but feels very much like other tracks on the Spyro's Adventure soundtrack. Hard to distinguish from the others. Simplistic and does its job, but I want a little more. I do love when it goes down that path where it sounds like something you'd hear on a farm, but it just isn't giving me anything special. Rush me into battle immediately! A strong high, but the rest is repetitive with what feels like a common beat. Alright, maybe the most controversial pick on the list. I don't really know people's opinion on this track, but in my opinion, it's just too overplayed and repetitive to the point where I hate it. I honestly think the Ring of Heroes mobile game had something to do with it, because it was playing that game permanently, but still, even when playing in a trap team it gets old quick. Unfortunately, it's pretty damn catchy, so it gets stuck in my head. You might be wondering, wait, isn't this Chef Pepperjack's song? Why the hell is it a SuperChargers soundtrack? Well, it's because there's one of the land racing tracks that uses it as background music, and it low-key works on bringing that intensity. A catchy banger that I just don't really have on repeat. So catchy, but very repetitive. Feels like this needed a bit more originality, something else in the mix to give it more oomph. This matches the game perfectly in terms of soundtrack, but unfortunately I just don't feel like it's too replayable. It's like Golden Queen's Lair, but more creative, so it's better. This track always feels upbeat, but it's never hooked me in. It has creative parts with higher pitches, but it still stays repetitive and not too inspiring for me. Intense and loud, fills you with motivation. Makes you feel like doom is impending. Unfortunately, compared to the other tracks, it's just not one of my favorites. Nothing too crazy, but those slow, drawn-out parts are just hypnotic. They've got me levitating. The rest is alright. The main part of the song is extremely catchy and brings such good energy, but the rest of the song feels very much like it could be mixed with any other song off the SSA soundtrack. Still, I do love the instruments on this one.
Captivated when I sing, I'm the one who pulls your strings.
One of the only tracks with lyrics, and they somehow make it catchy. I won't say I listen to it often, I really don't, but it's a head bopper whenever you get to it in the game. Unfortunately, a forgettable song when placed with all the other tracks we've gotten from Swap Force. It feels like it's taking me places and has some stunning sounds mixed in, which makes it underrated, but hard to put against what we have on the list. This one's an upbeat, feel-good soundtrack. It just gets old quickly because of how much it's played when you're in Woodborough. Puts you in the exact vibe of the level, but it's not something I'd replay when listening to the soundtrack. It's just a little too slow. Some beautiful melodies though. A good chill track that feels really similar to the other songs on the Swap Force soundtrack. It's not memorable, but it does have something whimsical about it. This one's a western type of track. Enjoyable and energetic, and the whistling at the end is such a great addition. Not my type of song, but a goodie. This feels a lot more like a classic video game soundtrack, like something that puts you in the mood of the environment. It does that well, but nothing more in my opinion. This one is a weird one. It's like slowly creeping up on you, then gets a little quicker and drops, but then goes back to being slow and a little somber. Definitely not a replayable one, but a special one. I love how this track can go so hard and then go softer when it has to transition to another part. The string instruments do such a good job in Skylanders music, they can legit bring you anywhere. One of the most iconic tracks in Giants in my opinion. Very piratey, it feels jolly and high energy. It's like the baseline for a good Skylanders soundtrack. A very rapid beat that brings good energy with a nice drawn out sound in the middle of it. If you want something to get you pumped for a speedrun, this is definitely a good one to choose. This kind of track gets thrown into the chill trap team songs for me. They have good energy, but they just don't feel all that special. Chompy Mountain is 100% the best out of that type though. It gets me out of my seat sometimes, so I'll give it a plus for that. It also has a louder and more high-pitched part toward the end, where it feels like it's giving a closing act. You know what? You're pretty good, son. You just know shit goes down when you hear this. Dark, upbeat, motivating, it's exactly what you need from boss fight music. It's very fitting that both Chaos level theme songs are together. The one in Giant slightly takes the edge though. Lorne Balfe had some time to think about it and cook up something even better. The slow march towards defeating Chaos with these deep voices pushing you through. It's got a touch of Secret Vaults of Secrets in it, adding that intensity to it. It's hype, but not the best we have on here. This beat feels like you're slowly walking towards your doom. It's right over Chaos's theme because of the sheer imposing nature of it. I just wish the rap was part of the soundtrack though, because that would have gone in first in my book without a doubt. I don't know what it is about this track, but I feel like it might not be too popular. There's just something I love about the sounds this track uses. I feel like it could benefit from a bit more creativity, but there's definitely something here that I love that I just can't put my finger on. There's an interesting part that picks up at around 140 that gets me in a good mood. One big downside to this one though is it kind of makes me feel like there's an alarm going off. This is a certified banger. The melody on this is just so entrancing, and then the song shifts into an even stronger moving part. Like, no one was even asking for it to go that far, yet it still did. Hey, another town! Out of all the stone drum sounding songs, Rumbletown is definitely the best in my opinion. You can always hear them in the background, but it doesn't make the song feel soulless like in Mullican Mountain for example. It's not the most intense track, but it's a nice chill background song to have when battling through enemies and making your way to Brock! It's a feel-good, bring you along for the adventure song, but its lyrical counterpart just adds so much more, and oh yeah, it's coming soon. Still a catchy track. That little sound like something is warping in from a different dimension, the quickness of the beat and its catchiness, everything here is a recipe for a banger. One of the best out of SSA. And damn does the second part go hard. Also, does anybody hear this and immediately think of the climb challenges in Swap Force? I sometimes mistake this for being the main theme of SSA, but it really is its own thing. It's got that Skylanders charm where you feel like you're flying through islands and saving everyone you come by. It doesn't hesitate to transition into some really loud bits, making the track sound truly majestic or even imposing. It's charming, melodic, and catchy. Now here's the main theme of SSA. Lifts you up, brings you on an adventure, the classic track that you just can't go wrong with. Hans Zimmer was on this, by the way, and apparently Lorne Balfe is one of his proteges. How can you not think Skylanders is GOAT status? The classic track, but with some weird creature voices thrown in the mix. Depends on your mood, to be honest. Kayo kaye, kayo kayo. The strumming of the guitar and the fast-paced beat makes this into an intense and memorable track. It's one hell of a way to start the whole franchise. One of the strongest main themes. It hypes you up to play the game, what can I say? God, I love that stringy part in the middle of it. Adds such an original touch to something so hype. Makes you float for a sec, then brings you down in a beat drop. The energy that this track brings is just so good. It feels like you're on the path of doing something great, which is what, in turn, motivates and moves you. A banger in my book. Also, Swap Force is where Lorne Balfe just drops insane electronic sounds here and there. And what can I say, it works. Very creative sounding track. The start is something way different than what we normally have in Skylanders, but the track becomes very in line with what we do here usually. It brings a good vibe with some nice high-pitched sounds. I low-key always forget this track exists, but it's actually pretty good. It's the type of track that can really move you. Wait, the more I'm listening to it, the better it is. What the hell? Maybe some of you might have the opinion I had about Skylanders Academy with this track, but I feel like this one brings a lot more energy, a lot more motivation, and resolution. It's much more something I'd like to hear when chilling in the hub area. I really do think it's inspiring as a soundtrack. I don't know where Lorne Balfe got that little popping sound from. It really sounds like he sampled the sounds from the video game itself. Some beautiful, might I even say majestic notes in here. You can feel the intensity, but also the scope of the emotion. Another Giants dub. Creepy, but in the right way. I can feel the experimentation on this one, and it really works. Ride of Evil Glumshank somehow delivers a creepy sounding boss fight track that is insanely catchy. Also, these electronic elements are insane. And peak it is. It feels like the precursor to something that would have been in SuperChargers. It brings you on for a journey and it pumps you the F up. The better Western song in my opinion. It feels like I'm preparing myself to stand off against the sheriff, one hand on my revolver. A beautiful track that just fills me with excitement and energy. It even has a drawn out part that brings in a more tense mood. You've also got to applaud it for being the longest soundtrack in all of Skylanders. This one brings you in for a journey. Somehow more piratey than Cutthroat Carnival is, and even catchier. It brings such good energy you can probably fly through this level when this is playing. SuperChargers uses such interesting sounds in its soundtrack, and this is the perfect proof of it. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like little creatures singing. It just works. This one's a hit. Do I even have to say anything? My guiltiest pleasure might be that I genuinely love this song. You beat the darkness. You set us free. I remember bumping this on a trip to Italy back in 2019. I don't know how Lorne Balfe cooked this up, but it might be the most iconic track on the whole list. The crescendo leading up to a beautiful drop. Feels like I'm at an orchestra. It's beautiful. I swear this one might go unnoticed because the start is nothing too special and it's a little slow, but what it brings at the beat drop is pure ecstasy. One of the catchiest melodies through all of the games. I've also got to put this in here. One of my favorite unreleased soundtracks in all of Skylanders is the Dragon's Peak one, which this song reminded me of. Give it a listen, that one is pure perfection. For one of my friends, this is his favorite soundtrack in Skylanders, and I can totally see why. The build-up on this one is truly insane. They really wanted to make us feel like we were hopping to a masterpiece. The electronic sounds, the intensity, it just brings you everywhere you need to be. Very weird at first. Like, I never expected to like this track when I heard it, but this shit picks up quicker than a garbage man. How did Lorne Balfe sneak in such a banger in a level that was supposed to be calm and playful? Don't get me wrong though, he still fits in that peaceful sound in this track. Underrated gem. How do you even pronounce this? I'm gonna be saying schooner like in school, because they're written similarly, but what even is a schooner, am I right? Alright, pronunciation aside, this is peak SSA for me. Such an interesting and entrancing instrumental here, and you feel the intensity with the drums. I want to mention that this is officially the last song from Spyro's Adventures on the list. A lot of tracks are similar to each other, but they set the foundation for every single game beautifully. So, Sky Schooner Docks is my #1 pick for SSA. Now, let's get to the creme de la creme, the absolute best that Skylands This legitimately used to be my favorite soundtrack back in the 2020 lockdown. Because of how short it is, it can't quite be my favorite now, but the insane electronic beat at the start with the drawn out sound at the end makes for a masterpiece that goes by a bit too quick. Spoiler alert, this was Will Drenner's top song in his video. I don't quite agree with him about giving it the #1 spot, but boy is it great. This track takes the famous main theme and somehow turns it into something even more enjoyable, even more moving. It hits everywhere you want it to hit. It's diverse and it's never really boring. I hate this level in the game, but damn did they deliver on the music. Insanely catchy and gives off such good vibes, to the point that it's danceable. When the beat drops, it legitimately becomes one of the most hyped songs on the list. This is the team-up song. The music legitimately feels like you're speeding down a road. I don't know how to explain it, but it genuinely pumps me up. The Junkyard Isles of SuperChargers. What a peaceful track. Feels like I'm meditating on a small lake filled with frogs and lily pads and lotus flowers. Puts you in such a good and lighthearted mood. It's nice to have this type of feelings in a Skylanders game. We've officially arrived at the final song from the Swap Force soundtrack. Frozen Galleries is one of my all-time favorites that I can never hype up enough. It's the Junkyard Isles of Swap Force. Such interesting sounds. Feels like I'm floating in a snowy paradise. The melody is so whimsical and catchy. Just like Waterdrop Way, your mood is magically lifted. My #1 for Swap Force, Frozen Galleries. The final 4 songs are ones I consider a 10 out of 10. They are masterpieces that stand the test of time and that bring me to say that I genuinely feel happy to have lived during their creation. If you somehow never played Skylanders, or it's been a while since you picked up one of the games, you're going to want to write these down. My beloved intro song. It doesn't get better than this. You boot up your game, you think to yourself, man, I wonder what a Skylanders game with cars is going to give. And you get greeted with this masterpiece. Yeah, obviously you're pumped as hell now. I don't know what it is about SuperChargers, but it really feels like they heard the game involved racing, and Lorne Balfe cooked a soundtrack that fills your brain with adrenaline. Oh yeah, and give me more of that trumpet. Think Christmas, even just winter. You're gliding slowly down some ice. You're chilling in the snow. There's something this song has that is so pure, so soothing. It's nostalgia wrapped in a cozy blanket. I love everything about this song. It simply makes you feel at peace with everything. The calm, light-hearted, and whimsical nature melodies are something Lorne Balfe really mastered with the Skylanders soundtracks. Where to begin? I legit had forgotten this song existed a year ago when I truly got into the soundtrack again, but what a pleasant surprise it was. I recently played the Know-It-All Island level and I realized that the soundtrack isn't really used to its full potential there. It's like they cut some of the best parts. This one is truly a work of art. Give yourself a favor and listen to it. The snippet I put in is not enough. It's the Junkyard Isles of Trap Team, and not at all because it's from the second level of the game. I have to listen to it a second time, it's so damn good. The perfect upbeatness, the lighthearted nature, the soft sounds, it's paradise. My #1 pick from Trap Team, 1000%. Turn up the volume to the max. Lay down in your bed and ascend. This might very well be the best 2 minutes and 38 seconds of music I have ever heard. Junkyard Isles. The Junkyard Isles of Junkyard Isles. The definition of whimsical, of soothing. The epitome of Skylanders music. This track brings you somewhere you can't even name, like a dream. It pulls on your heartstrings. It connects you deeper than a person can. Every single note brings you closer and closer to pure happiness. I understand this might not be everyone's first pick, and that's perfectly fine. But this, for me, it just can't get any better. It's the best song from Giants, and it's the best song in the whole Skylanders series. I want to thank Lorne Balfe for making such great pieces of art, and giving life to such a beautiful franchise. Excuse me for just a bit so I can play this a couple hundred more times. So the goal was achievable in the end. All 75 tracks of the Skylanders soundtrack have been ranked. This was honestly such a pleasure to make, and I'm proud to be able to say that I knocked it off my bucket list. For the sake of fun and statistics, I compiled the average score I gave each song that can go from 1 to 10, and the average rank that each song received for each of the 5 games, to sort of compare what game has my favorite and least favorite music. In terms of average score, Trap Team unsurprisingly came in last with just 5 out of 10, while Giants and Swap Force were tied for first with 6.33 out of 10. That's when the other tests came in handy, because it showed that Swap Force had an average rank of 34, while Giants had an average rank of 33, so only 1 rank in difference. That's insane. I guess I can officially say that Giants is my favorite soundtrack, and honestly, even without the numbers, it is really my favorite. If you're wondering, Trap Team still stays last on average rank, with 47. I want to say that I truly love all of these songs, and despite the fact that I may prefer some over the others, I love everything that Skylanders has to offer, and when I'm in the mood for Skylanders music, none of these songs are getting skipped. If you guys want to check out the Skylanders playlist, the link is in the description, but you can also just make it yourself in a few seconds by just looking at every album from the Skylanders soundtrack and then adding them yourself to a playlist. Finally, shout out Lauren Balfe again. Junkyard Isles forever on repeat, and keep being passionate about the things you like. I'm Stefan, and thank you so much for watching.